Thank you, Ben, and thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to listen to me. Eastern Metals, it's a new company. We listed late last year. We've been around for 6 months now, and as Ben said, our principal assets were ex-Kidman resource assets that we acquired after very long negotiations, but the hallmark of those assets is they've had $9 million of expenditure on them historically, so we've bought those with a great data set. Let's get past the usual disclaimer. Okay, so here we are. We have 3 project areas. We call them the Arunta Project, the Cobar Project, and the Thompson Project. I'm going to focus on the Cobar Project today, but I'll certainly run you through our other project areas. The ex-Kidman assets is the Arunta Project, specifically the home of Bullion Mine, where there's an existing JORC 2012 resource estimate of 2.5 million tonnes at 2.8% copper equivalent. It's interpreted as a VMS system, but it's open, and there's great potential to add additional lenses from that resource. I would also say that we've recently completed an acquisition of neighbouring tenure, which gives us copper trends running to the west and to the northwest from the home of Bullion Mine. So we've got a lot of exploration potential around there to add to that resource base at home of Bullion. And it all sits within the Arunta pegmatite province, and the Barrow Creek pegmatite field is specifically in that area. We haven't done any exploration for pegmatites up there yet, but it's certainly mapped as an area. We're across the road from where Australasian Gold are, AHG, and Core Lithium also have tenure in the area. Moving to New South Wales, the Cobar Project, it's dominated by a thing we call Browns Reef. That was drilled about 8 years ago by Kidman. They identified a very large mineralised system. It's about 8 kilometres of strike. I'd describe it as like the hull of a ship in the ground. A lot of the work was done on one flank, the eastern flank of that system, and a large but low-grade mineralised area was identified. What we're chasing there is plums in the pudding, where there may be high-grade zones, and we've just completed our initial 4-hole drilling program there, following up on a historical high-grade hit, and we've had 4 fabulous intercepts to expand that load. Lastly, the Thompson Project, high-risk, high-reward project, looking for CSA Allura-style mine copycats, magnetic targets that look just the same. This area, it's covered in sediments, has been lightly explored historically. However, the basement rocks have all been interpreted to be Cobar Basin, so we think there's excellent potential for a major discovery there. We haven't funded it in the IPO, and we're looking for funding partners. And I should, just with our final comment down there, or penultimate comment, the new Evergreen Discovery, that's what we're calling our discovery at Browns Reef. We listed at 20 cents. We're 19.5 cents, or yesterday I believe. Our enterprise value is very low, as you can see, and accordingly we're well funded and our EV is very low. So we're pretty much the same proposition we floated on. We're extremely cheap. If you look at anyone who's got the quality of assets that we have, you could easily expect a much higher valuation. So this was the deal we put to investors on the IPO. We have traded up to 28 cents on very thin volumes. And I feel like we're poised for a serious re-rate on what's happened out at Browns. And to be frank, even just the quality of the assets as they stand today, we should be trading much higher. So, you've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just quickly run over management. We've got a very credentialed board, dominated by geologists. I'm about the only non-geologist. I'm a mine engineer and, for my sins, an accountant as well. Kathy Moises, one of our NEDs, very well-known geologist and research analyst and now company director. Jason Burden, structural geologist. Bob Duffin, our chairman, who is our principal shareholder, is in this room, is a geophysicist. And then we have a number of consultants, a very lean team. Everything's outsourced other than myself and our geologist. But we have 2 consulting geologists. Gary Jones, he discovered North Parks. He also did all the early work to discover Lake Cow. If you speak to the exploration geologists down there, they still reference and research his seminal works down there, if you like. Bob Richardson is the son of the doyen of geophysics in Australia and is our principal geophysicist, and is very intimately involved with the Thompson projects. So I'll just focus on our Cobar project. Browns Reef is a small tenement, only 10 units, but we have tenure to the north and south of it, following a controlling structure, or what's believed to be a controlling structure called the Warara Fault. We're in the vicinity of Peel Mining, and if any of you follow Peel Mining, market cap of around 140, 150 million, they have a number of deposits up there, copper and zinc dominant projects, and we're looking to identify at Browns Reef one or more lodes within that mineralised system that could be of that sort of size. So this is Browns Reef. It's about 8 kilometres in strike. Like I said, like the hull of a ship in the ground. There's been a lot of drilling done on the western flank, over about 2.7 kilometres of it by Kidman, and that's where the 27 to 35 million tonne exploration target came from. But within that drilling, there were some high-grade hits that hadn't been followed up on, and that's what we were acquiring the project for and to chase. The western flank has had very little work done. There was some air core drilling done by Electrolytic Zinc Company back in the 70s, which came up with some interesting anomalous results. There's some thin basalt cover there. It hasn't really had much work on it. And indeed, there's some anomalous results between these limbs, so there could be some folding within. What we're focused on initially, if I can get this pointer working, is this hole here, BRD13, drilled by Kidman Resources. So we plugged 4 holes around that, and I'll just jump in here. This is a long section of that 2.7 kilometres. Here's BRD13 with our 4 holes around it. But that sort of circle there, that's all you need to find a ore body that's potentially mineable. 200-300 metres of strike. These things, Cobar Basin, generally run pretty deep. So within this 8 kilometres, that's 2.7 kilometres, you've got 8 kilometres of potentially mineralised structures. There's potential to host one or more ore bodies within there. So this is us on a beautiful sunset after the flooding and rains and all the other dramas we've had out at Browns Reef. Out there with DDH1, who did a wonderful job drilling for us. And these were the results. This was the discovery. We call it the Evergreen Zone. What we essentially did is we plugged 4 holes around that BRD13. One to the north at the same depth, one to the south at the same depth, about 50 metres away, one 50 metres up dip and one 50 metres down dip. And we had fabulous results, and I won't run through them all here, but highlights up to 14% zinc. We saw quite a lot of copper in the southern hole, which was very interesting. It was quite high up. There had been copper seen by Kidman back in the day, but very deep. In fact, our highest assay of copper was 5.1%. But all of these are wide, they're ore grade, and we believe it's the start of a new discovery at Browns Reef. The next drilling program is marked up on this schematic here, and what we're doing is we're stepping out 100 metres to the north and 100 metres to the south, and we'll see if we can continue to hit high grade and wide intercepts. If we do that, then we've got to decide whether we start infilling or keep stepping out or chasing deeper. So we'll see what the next program comes up with, but without a doubt, we're onto something here in our view. Just this little highlight here, I think, is probably, besides the grades, is the most important thing. Okay, so that we've got this vertical depth of 300 metres right now, and it's open in all directions. So huge potential here. Now, because we don't have much time to talk, I'm just going to race ahead, and I certainly invite people to come to the booth if you want to discuss this in a little bit more detail. Our Arunta project, this is driven by the Homer Bullion Mine. These dark pink areas was our initial tenure, and we've picked up this new tenure here and some other tenure to the south here. This was our real focus here because what this gives us, here's the Homer Bullion Mine. There's a thing here called the Malbungus copper gossan, and we know this area from work done back by Aberfoyle in the day is anomalous for copper. There's also a trend that runs this way to the northwest from Homer Buoy mine, which is also anomalous for copper. So we're looking for extensions to add to the resource there. Homer Buoy, 2.5 million tonnes, a bit small. We want to get it to 5 million tonnes in our initial drilling program. So what we've designed at Homer Buoy, it's a 10-hole program. We've done over 2 stages, and it's a resource extension program for where the existing lodes remain open, and we'll attempt to double the tonnage there, and then we'll do exploration work looking for other lenses to continue to build the tonnage. This circle here is more or less what's described as the Barrow Creek pegmatite province. There's known pegmatites with lithium in the area, and our intent is to do a reconnaissance program over this tenure here for both copper and for lithium. We haven't got up there yet. We've had we have to get clearances redone for the Central Land Council up there. They were out in the field last month, so we expect to have them imminently. So we're hoping to be on the ground in the next 3 to 4 weeks up there doing that work and getting ready for drilling as soon as we get a rig available. This southern area here, prospective for copper, gold and rare earths principally. It's all pretty early stage exploration there, but we'll get down there in due course. So just zooming in on Homer Buoy. Here's the Homer Buoy mine, and within our existing tenure, there's quite a number of known copper anomalies. They've had some work done on them, but they need more work, so this will be our focus and going on this trend out here. We've also got to the north a thing called Prospect D. There was a little bit of drilling done up there. It's got copper and nickel up there, very high grades. We don't really know what we've got up there, but that's something we've got to do a little bit of work on probably later this year. This is just a little bit of a zoom in on Homer Buoy, showing those named prospects. Here up at Prospect D, you can see, we've got these quite high grade copper and nickel hits over a significant interval. There's a high grade area of about 250 metres, so it's an area of interest, but not our immediate priority. I've already mentioned the pegmatites. Our third project is the Thompson Project. It's a pretty interesting thing. Back to New South Wales. It's up in the White Cliffs area. There's been work done there historically by Minotaur and Plat Search. But what it is there's these magnetic bullseye anomalies like this. If you have a look at the magnetic anomaly that led to the discovery of the CSA Endeavour mine, it's almost a copycat, and we've got about 13 of them on our tenure. There's been some drilling done historically. Some of it's been co-funded by the government. And what they've identified is not an ore body yet, but what they think they've identified is the halo around a possible ore body. This area is covered in sediments, so it hasn't had much work done on it historically. It's been a difficult drilling to get to it. Our geophysical modelling on this has been done. Our drill targets are defined, and we just need to find a funding partner to get out there. But the drilling that's been done to date, what's been identified is what you would expect around the halo of a magnetic anomalous ore body, and the basement rocks have been identified to be Cobar Basin. So we believe the Cobar Basin stretches around to the west over or under our area of tenure. So it's a high risk, high reward area, and as I said, we're seeking funding partners. Okay, so we've got 1 minute to go. You can all independently go through our exploration program in your own time, but it's a busy news flow. It's going to be dominated by drilling initially at Browns Reef, where we're onto something, and as soon as we get a rig available up at Northern Territory, we'll be looking to do that resource expansion drilling at Homer Buoy. So the highlights, a new discovery. There's mines and mines in a week or so out at Orange. I think we'll be the talk of that with our new discovery. We've got the potential to put together one or more potentially economic ore bodies in a very short period of time. Our market cap is rock bottom. It's at IPO level, and we could easily get to a 50 to 100 million market cap on the back of some news flow in our tight registry. So it's a pretty interesting proposition. I think I'm out of time, and whether there's time for questions or not, I'm not sure.
Have you got a booth?
Yes, I do have a booth. We're the very first booth when you walk into the morning tea area on the right, so we're pretty easy to spot.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.